I was 34 when I learned that silence can be mailed. Not metaphorically, literally. A pale, thick envelope waited on my apartment doormat one winter morning, the kind that feels expensive before you even touch it. No return address, no stamp, just my full name in tidy ink, as if whoever wrote it had practiced on other people first. Inside was a single card. Invitation for the Whitlock Winter Lantern Soiree. Family attendance requested. Requested. Not welcomed. Not missed. Not loved. I laughed, because the last time the Whitlocks requested anything from me, it was money. The time before that, it was forgiveness. And the time before that, it was my silence, neatly wrapped like a gift nobody had to pay for. 5 winters ago, I stopped playing their favorite game. Pretend Elena never happened. No calls, no casual check-ins, not even a mistaken text meant for someone they actually remembered. My father, Charles Whitlock, built an entire identity on legacy and then treated his first daughter like an inconvenient footnote. So when that invitation arrived, it did not feel like reconciliation. It felt like an error someone expected me to correct. I did correct it. I RSVP'd yes. Not because I wanted to be seen, because I wanted to be undeniable. The Whitlock estate sat outside Briarcliff like it owned the weather. The driveway was lined with lanterns, each one glowing softly, as if the property itself had hired a publicist. The house looked perfect in the way a museum looks perfect, curated, polished, and full of things you are not allowed to touch. I walked in without knocking. I had learned that if you ask permission in a Whitlock house, you get charged interest. The foyer smelled like cedar and old entitlement. A pianist played something delicate and harmless, which was fitting, because my family preferred their music the way they preferred their problems: pretty, quiet, and someone else's. My mother, Vivian Whitlock, turned first. Her pearl earrings caught the light like tiny halos she had not earned. "Elena," she said, as if she had just remembered the word existed. "Vivian," I replied, because if she got to be formal, so did I. Across the room, my younger brother Caleb leaned against a marble column, already wearing the smug grin of a man who had never faced consequences without a lawyer. Beside him, Serena Whitlock, my sister in age, my competitor by design, held court in a glittering dress that looked like it came with its own applause. And then there was the reason for the soiree. Donors. Cameras. The Whitlock Foundation banner. 100 wealthy strangers sipping champagne beneath a slogan that read, "Lighting tomorrow." I nearly choked. The Whitlock Foundation did not light tomorrow. It rented it out, then billed people for the privilege. A staff member approached with a tray. No one offered me a drink. No one offered me anything, really, except stares that tried to rearrange me into a person who did not disrupt their evening. I let them stare. I had become excellent at letting people underestimate me. It saved time. "Did you get lost?" Serena asked, gliding over with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. "No," I said. "I followed the scent of performance and panic." Her smile twitched. "This is a fundraising event. It is not personal." "Oh, it is personal," I told her. "Everything in this house is personal. You just pretend it is not when it benefits you." Caleb pushed off the column, joining us like an unpaid comment nobody asked for. "You are here for attention," he said. "Or money. Pick one." "I already have money," I replied. "And attention is not a goal, it is a side effect." Vivian swept in then, lowering her voice into that gentle tone she used when she wanted to sound kind while being cruel. "Elena, do not cause a scene." I looked at the banner again. "Lighting tomorrow." Then I looked at her. "I am not here to cause a scene," I said. "I am here to return something you misplaced." Her eyes narrowed. "What is that supposed to mean?" I lifted the pale envelope, the one with my name. "You requested my attendance," I said. "So I brought my gift." Charles finally approached, drawn by tension the way sharks are drawn by blood. He did not hug me. He did not even attempt warmth. He simply assessed me like a line item. "What do you want?" he asked. I smiled, and it felt like opening a blade. "I want the truth," I said. "And I want it where your donors can hear it." His jaw tightened. "You would not dare." I glanced past him, toward the stage where the Foundation's slideshow waited, projector humming softly, screen blank and innocent. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out a small black remote. "Oh," I said, voice calm as snowfall. "I would dare." And with a single click, the screen behind Charles Whitlock lit up, revealing a title slide in crisp white letters: "The Whitlock Foundation, where the light really goes." The projector cast its glow across the ballroom like a confession that refused to whisper. For a moment, nobody moved. Donors held champagne halfway to their lips. A photographer lowered his camera, confused, as if he had accidentally walked into a court hearing instead of a charity gala. Charles Whitlock turned slowly toward the screen, and I watched the color drain from his face in layers, like paint peeling from a lie. Vivian's smile froze. Serena's eyes widened in that specific way privileged people widen their eyes when consequences begin walking toward them. Caleb, ever the optimist, scoffed. "This is some dramatic stunt. You always did love a spotlight." "I do not love spotlights," I said. "I love receipts." I clicked again. Slide 2 appeared, a neat flowchart of the Whitlock Foundation's community initiatives, complete with arrows leading to consulting fees, event production costs, and something called strategic outreach retainers. One of the donors chuckled awkwardly. "I assume this is a joke?" "No," I said. "It is an annotated budget." Charles stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Turn it off." "You should have asked more politely 5 years ago," I replied. "Back when you were still speaking to me." His nostrils flared. "You are embarrassing us." "You embarrassed yourselves," I said. "I just brought a brighter bulb." I clicked again. Slide 3. Scanned invoices. Large numbers. Larger signatures. Vivian's signature, in fact, on a payment approved for a wellness pavilion that had never been built. Another invoice labeled Lantern Program Supplies, an impressive name for what turned out to be luxury gift baskets and imported candles. Serena's voice cracked slightly. "Where did you get this?" "That is the funny part," I said. "You sent it to me." They blinked. I leaned toward Vivian. "Remember the winter you asked me to help with your administrative cleanup because your assistant quit and you refused to learn your own passwords? You forwarded me everything. You called it busy work." I tapped the remote against my palm. "You handed me the thread. I only had to pull." Caleb stepped in front of the screen like his body could block truth. "This is private. You cannot—" "Oh, I can," I said. "Because none of this is private. You raise money from the public. You posture as saviors. You are not a family. You are a brand." A donor near the front cleared his throat. "Charles, is this accurate?" Charles lifted his chin, summoning his favorite disguise, offended dignity. "This is a disgruntled relative," he said. "She is not well." I smiled. Classic. When you cannot deny the facts, you diagnose the woman. I clicked again. Slide 4. A photo of me standing beside a sleek glass building, shaking hands with a woman in a sharp suit. Under the image, Sunfield Audit Group acquires Larkspur Ledgers. Below that, in smaller print, Elena Marlowe, managing partner. A murmur rolled through the room. A few donors recognized the name. Sunfield Audit Group was not famous for being friendly. It was famous for being correct. Charles's voice lowered to something dangerous. "You built that company?" "I did," I said, "while you were staging lantern festivals and calling it philanthropy." Vivian's eyes flicked around the room, calculating exits, damage control, angles. She was a woman who could turn a fire into a scented candle if the guests were watching. Serena tried a softer approach, stepping close like we were suddenly sisters again. Elena, we can talk about this later, in private. I laughed once, quietly. You mean in the place where you can rewrite the story without witnesses? She swallowed. What do you want? There it was, the Whitlock translation of emotion. What do you want? I turned toward the crowd. I want the people who donated their money to know where it went, I said. And I want the Whitlocks to stop using charity as a costume. Charles's hand twitched, as if he might grab the remote from me. He did not. He knew what cameras do to men like him. So he did the next best thing. He smiled. It was a practiced smile, the kind that could make a scandal sound like a misunderstanding. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, voice ringing with polished charm. This is clearly a family matter, and we will address it internally. Please enjoy the evening. I clicked again before he could finish. Slide 5 appeared, and this one was not about money. It was about names. A list of scholarship recipients, neatly typed. Children, teenagers, students who had been promised funding through the Whitlock Foundation's Lighting Tomorrow scholarship program. And beside each name, a red stamp, denied. Under the list, a single line read, Reason, budget reallocation. A woman near the front gasped. My niece applied, she said. They told us the fund was empty. I turned to Charles. It was not empty, I said. You just poured it into yourselves. Charles's smile collapsed. His voice came out sharp. Stop. I clicked again. Slide 6 loaded slowly, like the room itself needed a moment to brace. On the screen, a scanned document with a bold header. Notice of Forensic Investigation, submitted to State Charitable Oversight Commission, and at the bottom, in unmistakable ink, my signature. Vivian made a small sound, like air escaping a punctured balloon. Serena whispered, You reported us? I met her eyes. I did not report you, I said. I introduced you to accountability. Caleb lunged toward the projector table, but a security guard, hired for donor safety, not Whitlock protection, stepped between us, hand raised. The room broke into a storm of voices, questions, accusations, phones coming out, cameras waking up. Charles grabbed my arm, nails digging in just enough to remind me who he thought he was. You think this is revenge? He hissed. I looked at his grip, then back to his face, calm as ever. No, I said. This is the opening act. Then I leaned in, close enough for only him to hear. The revenge, I murmured, is who I am going to fund instead. And I clicked one more time, letting the next slide begin to load, bearing a new logo and a name that made Vivian visibly sway. The Marlowe Futures Fund. The Whitlocks were good at throwing parties, but they were not good at surviving them. Within moments, the ballroom turned into a polite riot. Donors clustered in tense knots. Whispering traveled faster than the pianist's fingers. People who had spent years perfecting small talk suddenly found themselves forced into large truths. Charles attempted damage control the way he always did, by raising his voice and lowering his ethics. This is a misunderstanding, he announced, palms out like a pastor. This presentation is unauthorized and misleading. A man near the stage frowned. The invoices looked pretty real. Vivian glided forward, switching to her softer weapon, maternal warmth directed at the room instead of her children. We are grateful for your generosity, she said. We would never misuse it. I tilted my head. Never is a strong word for a woman with a paper trail. Serena's face was tight, but her voice stayed sweet. Elena, you are hurting people who did nothing to you. Incorrect, I said. I am helping people you did something to. Caleb, who had always treated consequences like an optional subscription, leaned close and hissed, You think the state cares about your little slideshow? Father will make a call. I smiled. I already did, multiple calls, with attachments. His eyes narrowed. You are bluffing. I clicked the remote again. On the screen, a confirmation page. Case received. Investigation pending. Under it, a reference number so official it might as well have been handcuffs. Caleb went quiet, which was the first charitable act he had ever performed. The donors were no longer listening to Charles. They were listening to their own alarm bells. I watched them, not with glee, but with satisfaction. There is a difference. Glee is childish, satisfaction is earned. Then, through the crowd, I saw her. A girl stood near the edge of the ballroom, half hidden behind a decorative column. She wore a simple dress that looked borrowed, not chosen. Her hair was pulled back in a hurried ponytail. She held a program booklet in both hands, like it could shield her from the room. She was watching the screen with a focus that made the adults look sloppy. She was not confused. She was learning. I recognized that posture. I wore it for years. Vivian followed my gaze and stiffened. "Do not," she warned, voice low. "Do not what?" I asked. She forced a smile for the crowd. "Do not turn this into a spectacle involving children." I let my eyes stay on the girl. "Children are the entire reason you built this spectacle." The girl's name came back to me from old holiday seating charts and ignored birthdays. Mia, Serena's daughter, the family's current decorative centerpiece, the one everyone praised for being so quiet, as if quietness was proof of good breeding. I walked toward her, weaving through donors like I belonged there. Because I did. Not as a Whitlock, but as a consequence. Mia's eyes widened as I approached. She looked ready to apologize for existing, which is what happens when you grow up in a house where emotions are treated like stains. "Hi," I said gently. She blinked. "Hello?" "You are Mia," I said. She nodded once, cautious. "Yes." Serena appeared behind me like a perfume cloud and a threat. "Elena, leave her alone." I did not turn around. "I am not harming her," I said. "I am noticing her. It is different." Mia looked between us, then back at the screen. "Are those names real?" she asked, voice small. "Yes," I said. "They are students who applied for scholarships." Her brow furrowed. "Why were they denied?" I glanced back at Serena, who stood rigid, lips pressed into a line that said, "Do not embarrass me with honesty." I returned my attention to Mia. "Because the people in charge made selfish choices," I said. "And then they called those choices complicated." Mia swallowed. "Is my family bad?" The question landed in my chest like a stone. Children ask the most dangerous things with the simplest words. I knelt slightly so my eyes met hers. "Your family is powerful," I said. "Power is not the same as good. It is not the same as safe. It just means they get away with things longer." Mia stared at the program booklet. "Do people ever stop getting away with things?" I stood, smoothing my dress. "Yes," I said. "Sometimes the person they ignored becomes the person who writes the rules." Behind us, Charles's voice rose again, sharper now. "Elena, you are finished." I turned slowly to face him. "No," I said. "I am getting started." Then I looked back at the screen and clicked. The Marlowe Futures Fund logo filled the wall, clean and bold. Under it, initial donation. All Whitlock Foundation restricted funds, transferred upon court order. The room erupted. Vivian's hand flew to her chest. "That is impossible," she breathed. Charles stepped toward me, fury breaking through his polish. "You cannot take what is ours." I held his gaze. "It was never yours," I said. "It was borrowed from people you pretended to help." Caleb's voice trembled. "What court order?" I smiled, because that was the question I wanted. "Oh," I said, lifting another envelope from my bag, heavier than the first. "The one you signed without reading." Charles froze. Vivian whispered, "What did you do?" I slid the envelope onto the nearest table, right beside a donor's untouched champagne flute. "I gave you exactly what you always demanded from me," I said. "My signature." Then I tapped the envelope once, like a judge's gavel. "And now," I added. It belongs to me. Charles Whitlock stared at the envelope as if it might bite. He knew my handwriting. He knew my calm. He knew deep down that I did not come back to beg. Begging was what they trained daughters for. I came back to collect. Vivian moved first, snatching the envelope with the speed of a woman who had spent decades grabbing control before it slipped. Her manicured fingers tore it open. I watched her read. Her lips parted. Her eyes scanned faster. Her face lost its color like someone turned down the saturation on a portrait. Serena leaned in. Mother, what is it? Vivian did not answer. She could not. Her throat worked silently, as if words were stuck behind the truth. Caleb reached for the papers. Let me see. Vivian handed them over with stiff fingers. Caleb read one line, then two, then 10, and then his expression did something unfamiliar. It became honest. No, he said. No, no, no. The donors were still in the room, but the Whitlocks stopped pretending they mattered. That was the thing about my family. Strangers were useful only until they became witnesses. Charles stepped close, voice low. Explain. I will, I said. In a way you can understand. I lifted the remote and clicked again. The screen changed to a simple slide titled, The Legacy Restoration Pledge. Oh, that, Vivian whispered too quickly. That is just paperwork. That is not binding. I tilted my head. Is that what you told yourselves when you signed it? Charles's eyes narrowed. We did not sign anything. I reached into my bag and pulled out a glossy folder. You did, I said. Sometime earlier this season, at your club luncheon, when you were too busy complimenting yourselves to read. Serena's voice sharpened. I remember that luncheon. Of course you do, I replied. You were praised for your speech about generosity. I nearly applauded. It was an impressive performance for a woman who treats charity like a mirror. Caleb jabbed a finger at the document. This says we agreed to an independent audit and contingency transfer of restricted funds if misallocation was found. Yes, I said. Contingency transfer to a verified educational foundation. Charles snapped. We would never approve that. I smiled. You did not approve it. You admired it. Vivian's voice rose, panicked now. You misled us. No, I said. I dressed the truth in a language you respect. Prestige. I clicked again. The screen displayed a photo from the club luncheon. Charles shaking my hand. Vivian smiling beside us. Serena beaming at the camera. A banner behind them read, Celebrating Community Leadership. At the bottom of the photo was the caption, Whitlock Family Signs, Historic Transparency Pledge. A donor near the front inhaled sharply. I saw that in the social pages. Yes, I said. It was a lovely write-up. You even called it brave. Charles's jaw clenched. You orchestrated this. I organized it, I corrected. You orchestrated your own downfall the moment you assumed I was still desperate for your approval. Serena stepped toward me, eyes blazing. You are doing this because you are angry. I shrugged. Anger is loud. I am quiet. This is not anger. This is strategy. Vivian tried to recover her composure, smoothing her hair as if grooming could fix fraud. Elena, she said, voice syrupy. We can resolve this privately, as family. Family, I repeated. You mean the group that stopped speaking to me the moment I stopped being useful? Charles's voice was a growl. What do you want? There it is again, I said. Your only love language. I stepped closer, letting him feel the steadiness of my presence. I want the scholarships funded, I said. I want your foundation investigated properly. I want the restricted funds removed from your grip. And I want one more thing. Caleb's eyes darted. What? I looked past them, toward Mia, who stood frozen near the column, watching like she was memorizing this moment for later. I want Mia, I said. Serena jerked as if slapped. Excuse you? I want her out of the Whitlock performance pipeline, I said. I want her to have access to real programs, real mentors, real chances. I want her to learn that silence is not the same as consent. Serena's voice shook. She is my daughter. And I am her warning, I replied. Mia's small voice drifted across the tension. Mom, what did you sign? Serena turned, startled by her own child speaking at all. Mia, do not answer her, I said, sharp as a bell. For once. Vivian tried another tactic, the one she saved for emergencies. Tears. Her eyes glistened. Elena, sweetheart, you are tearing us apart. I did not blink. You were apart long before I arrived, I said. I am just turning on the lights. Charles lunged for the folder in my hand, but the security guard stepped in again, firm and professional. Sir, the guard said, you need to step back. Charles stared at him, stunned, as if the universe had forgotten its place. Then he turned to me, voice poisonous. You think you have won. I leaned in, calm enough to make him itch. I think you have lost, I said. Winning is what I do next. I stepped away and clicked the remote. The screen displayed one final line in bold. Next step, public disclosure at the Whitlock Foundation board meeting. The room went quiet in a new way. Not shock, not confusion, fear. Vivian whispered, When is the board meeting? I smiled. Soon, I said. And you will all be there. Caleb swallowed hard. We can stop you. I looked at him with the pity he had never earned. You cannot stop me, I said. You can only decide how much dignity you want to lose on the way down. And then I heard a soft sound behind me, paper rustling. Mia stepped forward, holding the program booklet out like evidence. Is this what the foundation is supposed to do? She asked, pointing to the page about scholarships. I took the booklet gently. Yes, I said. That is what it is supposed to do. Mia looked up at Serena. Then why did you not do it? Serena opened her mouth. No words came out. For the first time all evening, the loudest truth did not come from me. It came from the quietest girl in the room. The Whitlocks did not know what to do with a child who asked real questions. They were skilled at deflecting journalists, charming donors, and smiling through scandal. But Mia's voice, small and clear, cut through their polished tactics like a blade through ribbon. Serena's lips moved as if she could manufacture an answer by force. Nothing came. Her face hardened instead, and she did what Whitlocks always did when they felt cornered. She blamed me. You filled her head, Serena snapped, finally finding volume. You came back to poison everything. I exhaled slowly. If truth feels like poison, it is because you have been living on sugar. Charles stepped forward, regaining some of his boardroom bark. Enough. Elena, you will leave. You will stop this circus. And tomorrow we will fix it. I raised an eyebrow. Fix it, I repeated. You mean hide it. Vivian's eyes shone with carefully measured distress. We can make donations, she offered quickly. We can fund scholarships. We can do everything you want. Just not like this. Not with witnesses, I said. Caleb hissed. You are ruining our name. I smiled, tired but steady. Your name is not a vase I dropped, I said. It is a fire you started. I am simply refusing to choke on the smoke. The donors were still watching, many of them recording now, because rich people love justice as long as it comes with good lighting. I took a step toward the microphone stand near the stage, the one Charles had planned to use for his speech about generosity. He reached out instinctively, as if he could stop me with proximity. The security guard shifted again, and Charles stopped. For once, the room did not bend to him. I lifted the microphone. The sound system hummed, eager. My name is Elena Marlowe, I said, voice even. I am Charles Whitlock's eldest daughter, the one this family stopped mentioning when it became inconvenient. Vivian flinched. Serena stared forward, jaw clenched. Caleb looked like he might vomit entitlement onto the marble. I built Sunfield Audit Group, I continued, because I learned early that people like the Whitlocks survive on two things: secrecy and everyone else's discomfort. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The Whitlock Foundation collected donations under the promise of scholarships and community programs, I said. Instead, it paid for consulting fees, luxuries, and image management. Tonight, I gave the Oversight Commission what it needs to investigate properly, and I used the Whitlock's own signatures to protect the restricted funds from being redirected again. Charles lunged forward, voice cracking. "You cannot do this!" I held the microphone steady. "I already did." I lowered my gaze to Mia, who stood near Serena, hands clasped tightly. Her eyes were wide, but she did not look afraid of me. She looked afraid of what she now understood. So I softened my tone, not for the adults, but for her. "Mia," I said, "you asked what the foundation is supposed to do." She nodded. "It is supposed to help students," I said. "So I created a new fund, the Marlowe Futures Fund. It will cover scholarships directly, with public reporting, independent audits, and zero Whitlock hands on the money." A donor near the front spoke up. "Is that possible?" "Yes," I said. "It is not complicated. It is just inconvenient for people who prefer profit." Vivian's voice trembled. "Elena, please, you are humiliating us." I looked at her, truly looked. "You taught me humiliation," I said. "You just did not expect me to learn how to return it gift-wrapped." Charles's expression shifted, calculating again. "We can negotiate." I smiled. "You can try," I said. "But you will be negotiating with regulators now, not with me." I set the microphone back into its stand and stepped away from the stage. The room buzzed like a beehive that had finally noticed the smoke. Serena grabbed Mia's wrist, pulling her close. Mia resisted, just slightly, and it was enough to make Serena's face tighten with unfamiliar panic. "Come," Serena snapped. "We are leaving." Mia did not move. She looked at me instead. "Are you going to go away again?" she asked. The question hit harder than any accusation from Charles. I walked toward her slowly, careful not to startle her, as if she were a skittish animal that had only recently learned humans could be unsafe. "No," I said. "Not if you do not want me to." Serena's eyes flashed. "You do not get to decide that." Mia's voice, still small, became steady. "Maybe I do," she said. Serena stared at her daughter like she had never met her before. I reached into my bag and pulled out one last envelope, smaller than the others. I handed it to Mia. "What is it?" she asked. "A letter," I said. "And an application. For a summer program where you build things, not appearances." Mia held it like it mattered. Vivian's voice broke. "This is tearing our family apart." I turned to her, calm as snowfall. "No," I said. "This is showing you where it already cracked." Charles stood rigid, eyes burning. "You think you are righteous." I met his gaze. "I think you are exposed," I said. "And you hate that it was done by the daughter you tried to erase." The donors began to leave, talking fast, phones out, reputations already shifting. The Whitlock Winter Lantern soiree was ending exactly how it deserved, not with applause, but with consequences. As I reached the doorway, I looked back one last time. Mia stood in the center of the room, holding my envelope, lantern light reflecting in her eyes. Serena looked lost. Vivian looked frightened. Caleb looked furious. Charles looked like a man meeting the limits of his own control. I smiled softly, not kind, not cruel, just final. Then I walked out into the cold air, letting the door close behind me. And for the first time in years, the Whitlocks were left with what they had always given me: silence. Only now, it belonged to them.